When I was a kid, I used to love playing in the woods. This was because I'd been born in a town next to a heavily forested area located in the piney woods. Growing up, it was myself and my dad. He was a hard-working man that did his best to support his only son. Oftentimes, I would be left at home alone when he went off to work, because it happened so often as the years passed. I got more used to it and didn't really mind. We had cable, but there was nothing really on that I cared to watch, so I usually spent most of my time outside in my backyard. Let me just state that my backyard wasn't really much of a yard. There was grass, but it would immediately end, and the rest would be covered in a vast amount of trees. The houses in my neighbourhood were pretty spread apart, so there wasn't even fences to close off anyone's backyards. I loved those woods and spent many of my childhood in them. I spent so much time in them that I was familiar with certain areas that I spent time in. As time went on, I would go deeper and deeper to play and explore. There were always sounds I heard while playing, whether it be birds or the rustling of the leaves in the wind. Often I'd hear other people talking or laughing in the distance. Every time that occurred, I would stop doing what I was doing and quickly try to hide from the direction the noises had been coming from. For a while, nothing of interest happened. One time I went deep into the forest to find something to do. As I walked, I came across a small clearing surrounded by trees that were thicker than the rest. I found this place pretty interesting. An idea popped in my head, something about trying to build a small makeshift shelter made out of natural materials around me. I think I got the idea after watching an episode of Survivorman, one of the few shows that I enjoyed. Once the plan was set, I decided to return home and get some of my dad's cutting tools from the garage. As I gathered some equipment, including a hatchet, I made my way towards a construction site. While I walked, I took notice that the sky began getting a little darker as the sun started to go down. Looking down at my watch, I saw that it was 5:30. I was taken back at first because I thought that it would be too late to get started on my project, but then realised that I could at least start on a little bit before leaving. When I finally got there, I looked up and saw something that made me freeze in my tracks. A man. He wore a checkered shirt with some jeans, a camel-coloured cap, and had a black bandana wrapped around his mouth. He just stood there, wide eyes, completely still, as if he'd been caught in the act of something. In his hands was a shovel, and from what I could tell, he'd been digging in the spot where I planned to make my shelter. That wasn't all that I noticed. On the ground a few streets behind where the man was standing was a motionless body of a girl who looked around college age. The girl's head laid on its side and faced my direction. Her eyes looked at me, but at the same time they didn't. It's like they stared straight into the abyss as the lights went out. The man made the first move. He dropped the shovel and looked down at the body for a few seconds and raised his head and gazed at me. He then began to speak. "Hey kid, let's not do anything crazy. I'm not gonna hurt you." He then began slowly walking my way. Instinctively I raised the hatchet I brought along high above my head. Without a second thought I threw it at him, albeit way too high. I turned around and ran back towards my home as quickly as I could. In the background I could hear him chase after me, the sound of feet pounding against the dry leaves and ground being stepped on. Something else was heard that broke the repetition. A big object hitting the earth. While continuing to run, I turned my head and noticed in the distance the guy had tripped and fallen over. That didn't make me let up one bit. I continued sprinting and hopping over the tree roots one by one as I approached my house's back door. I closed it quickly and ran to the kitchen, where the phone was, and dialed 911. After the operator said the police would be on their way, I grabbed a kitchen knife and pinned myself in front of one of the couches, whose back was facing the back door. I waited for the man to appear outside the glass sliding door, but he never came. A short time later the cops arrived, along with my dad, who'd been called in from work. I began bawling and explained everything that had happened. The police scoured the wood in search of the man. They never found him, but they did find the body of the girl that was still there. It was later discovered that she was a prostitute that was hitchhiking, and the man picked her up. After having his way with her, he tried to get rid of the evidence, which I stumbled upon. Afterwards, once all this had blown out, my dad and I moved to the next town over. To this day, I still love the great outdoors, the wood in general, but I won't risk going out when I'm alone. What creeps me out is the thought that if he had finished burying the body before I showed up, I could have built a shelter right above her.